That was weird. Did anyone else hear that? I was hearing it going twice, I think. Oh, and now it's frozen. I hope it stops that. Anyway, welcome to the Virtual Book Club. It's the book club you can attend even if you don't read the book. Virtual Book Club started in October 2020 during the global pandemic. I'm Benita Lee, and I'm joined by different guests all over the world to discuss books, connect with others, or share thoughts and tell stories. Join us. Don't forget to say hi or where you're tuning in from. And today I have with me Mr. Hal Garin. Let me see if I can put Hal on here. I don't know what's going on here, Hal.
Oh, I'm here.
Okay. You appear to be frozen too. I really don't know what's going on. I'm going to try shutting everything down except for StreamYard. Is it acting weird for you too?
Um, I don't see any issues with my audio or video, but I do see issues with yours. A
Right.
lot of lag, and I hear words, but your lips aren't moving. Things like that.
Sometimes that happens in real life too, Hal.
There's a line from one of my favorite groups of all time, Pink Floyd, and it's from the song "Comfortably Numb," and it's the line that goes, "Your lips move, but I can't hear what you say."
Yep, pretty much. We have with us Isaiah from um,
Okay.
somewhere in, I think it was New Hampshire or New York,
UK.
UK.
North Yorkshire.
Oh, North Yorkshire, UK. Well, thanks for joining us, Isaiah. This is the book club that you can attend even if you don't read the book. Virtual book club. I usually show the book on the right top hand corner.
Well, my cover is different than yours, but there's mine. Same book, but there's a couple of versions around.
Yeah. Wow,
It's
there's a lot of
the
lag.
same book, but mine was somehow I ended up with a version that was published by Simon and Schuster in the UK. And so they used a different cover and they used a different subtitle for the book. I'm assuming maybe it has to do with marketing because the book's the same.
Right. Um, yeah. Do you think that, well, I'll ask you a question and I'll bring on Vern here.
Fern. Oh, now he's gone.
Are you?
Hold on a second, Vern. I'm having technical difficulties today.
Do not adjust your set. You're experiencing technical difficulties.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. I'm old enough to remember when, the TV would sign off at the end of a night and you'd get that little bullseye type screen thing.
Test pattern. Yeah.
You got
I
it.
remember. Things have changed.
Just a bit.
Mm.
So, well, we welcome you back, Vern. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's nice to get back and see old friends.
Exactly. We're reading a book called Decoding Greatness: How the Best in the World Reverse Engineer Success by Ron Friedman.
Okay.
And in it, like, I'll just read you the cover. For generations, we've been taught that there are two ways to succeed, either from innate talent or diligent practice. In Decoding Greatness, award winning social psychologist Ron Friedman illuminates a powerful third path, one that has quietly launched icons in a wide range of fields, from artists, writers, chefs, athletes, inventors, and entrepreneurs. Reverse engineering.
Okay.
So his premise is that you can reverse engineer success, and he gives you some ways to do that. One of them that stood out to me, and I don't know if it stood out to you, Hal, too, is like you first start by gathering what and collecting success stories. Is that what he called it? I can't remember.
Sounds right.
Yeah, you first start by collecting success stories, like whom you think are successful people that you would like to emulate, and read their books, watch their YouTubes. I'm just bringing stuff into it that I can think of. And then you start to see patterns. Now, I don't like. I tried to think about how I've emulated the people that I think that are successful, and like I could only think to as far back as my first real job, my first like office job. Not my first real job, my first office job, where I worked in an office. And I started in the mailroom. And I watched like people that were above me, and I had like executive mentors that would mentor me, and all that turned into like getting out of the mailroom, going through supply chain, and just keep on building on each foundation. I ended up where I ended up. So it's not a short process for me.
No, and I think the example you're using, if you are going to, I'll say first, if you're going to survive, and then I'll add if you're going to thrive in whatever organization you work for, especially if it's early in your career, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, you take in what is the patterns of success around you. You might do it consciously. You might say, oh, God, that person's successful and I want to do what they do. So let me try to figure out what they do and how they do it. And I'll emulate that. But you also may just do it unconsciously. You just start to fit within either figure out you don't work, you can't survive in that culture and it's not right for you, or you figure out how to live in that culture, and some of that comes by emulating the behaviors. Well, whether you realize you're doing it or not, you're sort of reverse engineering. What are they doing? What's working for them? And you start behaving that way too. And you try stuff and you find out that didn't work and you diagnose why it didn't, and you reverse engineer from that to just so you I don't know if that's exactly what he means in the book, but I think it's a great example, Benita.
Yeah.
Surviving and then thriving in the corporate world.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I think you're dead on there, whether you realize it or not. We're constantly re-engineering what we see and then using it for ourselves and then reiterating and using reiterations. Yeah.
When I think about reverse engineering something, and I've shared this with some of my clients, I find, what do you want? What is the end result you're looking for? And now that you know what the end result is, then what are the steps you have to take in order to get to that end result? And that is how you, in my mind, you reverse engineer. Looking at the end result. Okay, I I'm going to have to do something different than I've been doing. And you look at about maybe, and this is going to vary from person to person and situation to situation. Let's say that there are 3 or 4 steps that you'll need to take. And so you kind of look at those 3 or 4 steps that lead to that end result. Then you say, okay, those are the steps I need to take. Now, how do I know what it is I want. Let me start going backwards to the first step and figure, okay, this is where I've got to start. But when you break it down in terms of steps, I think it makes it easier to reverse engineer something. Um,
Right.
so look at what the end result is. What are the 3 or 4 steps maybe you take to get there? And then now you know what they are. Now start working backwards.
Right.
And you start working backwards. Then you say, okay, these are the steps I need to take. And you can pretty much apply that template to whatever it is that you want. For example, if the end result is success, I will go along with what Jose is suggesting. We probably do need to define success, because success probably has about as many different definitions as there are people, because everybody looks at success differently. So that would be a good thing to do, define success. And then from there, what does it look like? And success, what does it look like mentally, physically, and emotionally? That's how I look at it. Mentally,
I like that.
physically, and emotionally.
I like
Uh,
that. Well,
success in terms of the money I make. Okay, that's one.
okay.
How do I feel successful? And that really, when you're looking at reprogramming the mind, that feeling of success, what does that look like? Well, the last time I felt successful, I felt this particular way. And so now you know what that feeling is. Now create it. How do you create that feeling? So you want to start looking at how it feels to be successful. What does it look like? What does it sound like? Those are all elements of that end result of success. So it's a formula, but you just kind of back into it.
Right. Yeah, you bring up a great point of like looking at the end result and then backing into it. There was a example that he gave of I can't remember if it was, I think it was Michael Dell, the person that um, developed Dell,
Computers.
computers. He on his like, or it could have been Elon, I don't know, or Jeff Bezos, but it was somebody, one of those rich guys.
One of those rich guys. Okay.
Yeah, that got a computer when he was very young, and the first thing he did was unbox it and then take it apart piece by piece.
To figure out how it actually worked. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then figured out how to make it better.
right. And he did that.
but figuring out how to make it work. That's the first thing, is how does it work? Okay, now that I understand how it works, now what can I do to make it better? But you first do have to understand how it works before you can start looking at making improvements. So if we're
Right.
going to uh, reverse engineer success, I suspect that Hal will look at it differently than you, Benita, and you both would look at it differently than how I would see it.
Mm-hmm.
So what is success? Well, quickly and easily, it's making more money. That's
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes how we define success in our world. Is, how successful are you? Well, how much money do you have in the bank? And whatever that is that enough for you? Rarely is it enough. But if you start achieving your goals, you say, well, my goal is to make $100,000 or $200,000 or $500,000. Am I there? No. Okay, what's it going to take? And you start figuring out how that works.
Right. And to go along with that, when we talk about improving it, take it apart and then um, improving upon it and then putting your own spin on it,
Mm.
that is critical because I think in the book, and Hal, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, he says that, the worst people to learn from or experts at something are not really that great at teaching it. So, like, overachievers may be really good at doing it and then getting them to places that other people define as success, but they're really not good at teaching it.
Yeah, most people who are or have become experts at something, it has become so many of the key aspects of what they're good at is become second nature for them. So they assume that others understand that, and they
Right.
can't articulate those basic steps well because they just assume that it's common knowledge, because it's natural for them, and because it's natural for them doesn't mean it's natural for anyone else or others. And so that's why that this, I think it reminds me of that, the old saying of, if you can't do, teach, and if you can't teach, preach. And the people who aren't good at doing might be some of the best teachers because they can break it down into fundamentals and they can communicate the fundamentals. They might not be the best at doing it because they're not necessarily the experts, but they can teach it.
And
I think so. I think that adage applies in that.
you make a good point. It reminds me how corporate America makes that mistake. They will look at the people that they think they should promote, and they oftentimes select their high achievers in a particular in sales, for example, and they say, "Well, you're such a great salesperson. We'd like for you to become a manager, and have a team that you manage." And because someone does something well, does not necessarily mean that they can teach it. All right, it just means that they can do something well. So you have to pull from different sources. I find that works. As I'm looking at, how I can improve the quality of my business, and I start going on LinkedIn, not LinkedIn. I'm sorry. I start going on YouTube, and I listen to several people who talk about what can be done on LinkedIn. Not just one person, but several, and then I'll create what might be described as a hybrid of what a little bit about what each one does, and then pull it together for myself and say, okay, this is how I'm going to move forward. but I didn't copy any one person exclusively. I just took what I felt was successful and it worked for me from their success and made whatever adjustments needed to be made so that it worked for me.
And that's one of the key points of the book is that rarely are there, there so many new ideas that are truly successful. They are old ideas that someone has come along and reverse engineered and decomposed and figured out how to make it different and better.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the ones, so that, the old first to market is not necessarily the one that's successful. It's who's come after them and figured out, okay, this is what they did. This is how they did it. This is how I'm going to, so they've reversed engineered it. And then now how I'm going to go to market with my unique spin on it. And they're the one who ends up being more successful.
Right. How many times have we heard that story and people suing other people?
Because they've taken their idea. They feel they've taken their ideas when in reality, they didn't take their ideas. They, let's say, took their ideas, but they added so many different components to the original idea until it's no longer that. But what they did in terms of what they added to it that made it work so well, they created something new. And so there's something to be said for, yes, I took your idea, Al, but I added this that I got from Benita. I added this that I got from Jose. I added this that I got from Rob Berry. And so I know what I started with was your idea, but I've added and changed it so until it's something totally different now. It's not what you were doing. Because, Benita's spin was one way and Rob Berry's spin was another way. You can only imagine what that's going to all look like.
In a good way.
Yeah. Of course.
Well, I think, Hal is pointing to the quote that he quoted in his post.
I am.
That was on page 69. We tend to think that progress requires embracing the new, but sometimes you have to look backward to see ahead. Is that what we're talking about?
They say that if you don't know where you've come from, you're going to struggle for where you want to go.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, I love the example that comes to mind that's in front of us right now. It's a little bit of a sidebar, but what's his name? Sam Altman, the guy who is the CEO of OpenAI that developed ChatGPT.
Okay.
And in his testimony to the U.S. Congress earlier this week, he was basically imploring Congress to regulate AI. Basically the legislators are like, well, you need to tell us what to do because we don't know what to do. I could talk about, the theatrics that were going on with all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, we have to look at something new, AI, and apply what we know from the old. Because we're never going to figure out how to regulate something if we look at it as new. What do we know? Where can we draw parallels? And how can we put something similar in place? And Congress can't do that. They don't know how to do that. We got to fight the battle after the war was over. And then we'll come up with something, that we should have done a long time ago. But I think that's the concept, that some of the concepts that are playing out here as well. And, in this book is, and the quote that, you referenced, if we can't solve things if we look at everything as new.
Right.
Because we don't know how to deal with new.
What comes to mind when we talk about dealing with the new, the legalization of marijuana. Marijuana now is really very similar to alcohol. And once upon a time, alcohol was illegal. You could not consume it. You're not supposed to have it. And yet, where are we now with alcohol? You know, you've got so many different industries. And if you had known then, so to speak, what you know now, then you say, let me jump on this bandwagon. And that's what a lot of people are doing with regards to marijuana, because they see that when alcohol first came out, it was prohibition, couldn't have it, illegal, but now it's perfectly legal, socially acceptable, and marijuana is moving in that same direction. You know, it's to the point now where when you go into a dispensary, they say it looks like an Apple store. It's clean, it's well lit, and it's all kinds of different things that you look at, and it's like, wow. You know, and I come from a time when I remember that that was not what it was, what marijuana looked like, nor is that how you purchased it. You know, you sit up there and get what you could get. You put it somewhere on your body that you felt that they weren't going to check if they stopped you, and, you know, just so you can get it home to begin to process it yourself. But, you know, now you can go into a dispensary and buy it from a machine. And I look at it and I laugh, because they've changed things. So Chat GBT kind of reminds me that isn't it out there? People are using it. How are you going to regulate it now that it's out there? You're going to tell people what, you can't use it for this, but you can use it for that. So, you know, and I haven't really started using it yet. So I'm going to plead ignorance on this. I really have not, but it is something that I'm going to learn. I have to, because it is not going to go away. It's kind of like this internet thing. It is not going away. You better get used to it. So, you know.
It actually, the internet thing might very well go away, because Chat GPT, generative AI, will probably replace it. Right now, you can, you know, if you want to go find something, what do? You Google it, right? And it gives you a list of things, you know, based on an algorithm, and of, you know, here's the most likely hits in order of what you put in. But it's still on you to figure it out. And there have been times where I have gone, I'm not finding what I'm looking for. I ask Chat GPT the question, and I get exactly the answer I'm looking for, spelled out for me in a couple of paragraphs, because it's doing that legwork. It's scouring all of the information that's available and using human language to answer my question. Does it get it right every time? No. But every search I do in Google doesn't get it right every time either.
That's
because
true.
I didn't put the right words in. I didn't, you know, structure my search the right way, you know, whatever it is. You know, and you get inundated with irrelevance. And that's why Microsoft and companies like Microsoft and Apple and all of them are investing so much in the generative AI technology, because they see that that's the engine that's going to be behind this future of search.
Understood.
Interesting. Yeah.
It reminds me, though, of the importance of being able to ask good questions. Mm-hmm. If you want to get good answers, because if you ask lousy questions, you will get lousy answers. So in order for you to Google something, you're asking a question, it's got to be a good question, because if you just put words in there, then you're subject to get anything. But there are certain ways that you can really refine your search by using quotes, for example, to say, this is exactly what I want. Nothing different other than what is in these quotes. So that's your good question. It's not a fair question. It's a much better question than just putting words in there or typing, you know, what is the best way to become successful? And you'll get, you know, just an absolute ton of websites that you can go to. But if you're more specific in asking that question with quotes, around certain parts of the word or for the entire statement, it will bring you back exactly what you asked for. Ask good questions, get good answers.
Yeah, there's an interesting book that you can buy, but I got my copy free and it's in a PDF version, so I can send it to you, Vernon. I don't think I'm violating anything because I got it for free. It's the title is Impromptu or something like that. It is written by the guy who was the co-founder of LinkedIn well before Microsoft ever purchased it, Reid Hoffman. And basically what he does is he talks about ChatGPT and generative AI, and he does it in a novel way where basically he poses questions, philosophical type questions
Mm-hmm.
about AI to ChatGPT and gets the answers. And because it's a version that's not available unless you want to pay, it's not the free version, it's ChatGPT 4. You can ask more, it gets into a lot more detail. And so you can ask a question and then, well, now that you've said that, what about this? And you can build on the knowledge base. And so would I suggest reading it word for word? No. Is it scannable and kind of get you the, wow, I didn't realize all of that. Because it wrestles with some of the social issues, some of the downside risk exposures, and some of the potential and promise. So it's, I'd be happy to forward it on to you.
Yeah, yeah, I'd be interested. It's interesting. I wonder what Chat GBT would say if you asked Chat GBT, define yourself.
That's in there basically. Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah, and in that in there and a couple of other places, you start to explore getting Chat GPT. Now, it's not sentient. It's not got a brain. It's just a language. It's using the power of being able to search tons and tons of data publicly available, and then it is basically a language generator. What's the most logical thing to say based on all of that quickly scannable research using human language? So it just produces sentences using sophisticated technology to string together logical thoughts in response to what you ask. So you can pretty much ask it anything. Now they have built-in controls where you can't ask it certain things that might be something like, how do I build a Molotov cocktail? It'll say, they put filters in now that it kind of can stop some of that. But you can still sort of ask it questions like, is there a risk of generative AI, outperforming humans and basically dominating humans? You can ask it that, and it tries to give you an answer.
Now, it's interesting that when you say that, Hal, because I think as soon as you ask that kind of question, how can you make a Molotov cocktail? Now I'm looking at the value of regulation, because that's not necessarily, but let's take it beyond something a little more sophisticated than a Molotov cocktail. Let's talk about how can I avoid doing this, or how can I legally or illegally do that? And it'll scan what it knows and give you that kind of information. It will arm you with that kind of information. Is that something that you really want the public to have access to? So now you're talking about, how can I cheat the government? Or how can I cheat my boss? Or how can I sit up there and lie on the witness stand and get away with it? Just when you start thinking about some of the nefarious things that people think about.
Sure, the real risks come in. You're right. The real risks come in, and I have not thought about this as deeply as I probably should. But the real risks come in, and we will see it play out in the 2024 election cycle. The real risks come out with rogue actors in foreign governments trying to influence elections and things like that. Because same basic technology also drives deep fakes. It drives, there have already been deep fakes created of Biden, saying things he never really said, and
That's
things like
scary.
that. Yeah, it's very scary, and you can't regulate that because, I mean,
There you go. You're right.
in the end, it's going to be what it's going to be. We're straying way far off topic, Benita. But in the end of the day, what's the real risk to society? We just learn to trust nothing.
Yeah.
Where does that leave us? Am I on a book club call with the real Benita and with the real Vern? Is it the real me?
That's
It's
something
scary.
you can trust. That's something you can trust, is that for 114 weeks, it's been the real Benita.
That's true. But it's interesting when I learned that they were using Chat GBT to mimic or duplicate people's voices, and they were able to do it. If they had a snippet, they were able to take that snippet, and Chat GBT could sit up there and structure sentences based on what it heard, and it make it sound like Hal. You're right. Am I really looking at the real Hal here? Because
Go
Chat
go
GPT can create something that looks like you and can sound like you, but it's not you.
a very
That's scary.
a very artful demonstration of this. Now, it was just with audio, it wasn't with video. Was the testimony I referred to, where Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, the developer of ChatGPT, was testifying in one of the congressional committees. The chair of the committee is Richard Blumenthal. Blumenthal, in his introductory remarks, started talking, and he was doing his stuff. And then he said, I'm going to turn something to the effect of, I'm going to turn over the rest of the introductory remarks to Chat GPT. And they basically used AI
Okay.
to introduce the rest of the subject.
Whoa.
It sounded like his voice. It sounded as if he was actually saying it. And he said at the end, that wasn't me.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can go out, you can probably find it on YouTube, that congressional testimony where Sam Altman testified, because the testimony, it was just, what's today, Thursday? I think it was Tuesday this week.
Wow. I'd like to take a look at that. But now that is scary.
But it was very powerfully done, because and he didn't come up with that on his own, I'm sure. He's got some 20-something staffer in his congressional office that basically said, hey, boss, wouldn't it be neat if we, But,
So how do you begin to trust what you're seeing and hearing now? Because it's like Hollywood. Hollywood can create a movie that makes things look any way they want to do, but you're looking at a movie because you bought a ticket or you tuned in to Netflix or something, and okay, I know what I'm looking at is not real, and that's okay. I mean, if they make it look interesting and okay, but when something is to be trusted, I think I'm looking at CNN. Nope, that's not CNN. That I may look like CNN, but it's not CNN. It's wow. That I'm telling you that. So there, your trust goes way down.
Yep.
Where you really cannot trust what you see and hear anymore.
No, we're on the cusp of it right now, and it's just going to get more and more. And so, the thoughts on legislation or regulation are about, if you're going to be an AI developer, you have to be an approved developer. And, if something is not the real thing, then there has to be a disclosure. I mean, it's all, so you get the good actors trying to behave well, and it doesn't do anything for the bad actors.
Nope, doesn't stop them. That's like when you make a counterfeit bill The only way you can get around being arrested is to make it obviously look counterfeit. Make the picture larger and so that people can look at it and pretty much, oh, okay, that looks kind of strange. That's because it's not real. But other than that, if you try and make it too close to money, oh no, they'll come down on you like like hellfire. So now here's a question for ChatGPT. What is success?
Wow.
I can ask.
Yeah, I've not tried asking that one yet, but
I know Al's got it right at his fingertips. Okay, so I knew I'd ask the right person.
Success is subjective and multifaceted concept that can vary from person to person.
Didn't we say that earlier?
Yes. Success generally refers to the accomplishment of goals, the attainment of desired outcomes, fulfillment of one's ambitions, blah, 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 blah. Ultimately, success is about finding a sense of purpose and meaning in life and pursuing goals that align with one's values and aspirations. It is a journey rather than a destination. See, it's smarter than any of us.
I like that.
To that point, then it sounds like you really cannot define success.
It's unique to the individual. The challenge is going to be, can you define what success means to you? Exactly. That's the hard part.
I would agree. It's what success is to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because what success is to me is going to be different than what success is to you.
It sounded like Simon Sinek might have answered the last part of that question.
Well, yeah, I mean, the interesting part about the base level of the free version of ChatGPT is that much of, not all, not at any extent of any magnitude, all, but a good part of some of what it uses Wikipedia. So think about that. Wikipedia is user generated, so it's generally directionally correct and it's reasonably reliable, but there's no validation or verification on what's in there.
Right.
And then, they talk about, when, the chat that, generative AI, not just ChatGPT, but the versions that others like Microsoft are coming up with, the software, the programs have hallucinations. They'll start just making stuff up and they don't know exactly why it's doing that.
Is that right?
Yeah. And then they refer to it as hallucinations.
Chat. Wait. Let me be sure I understand what you're saying, Al. You're saying that at some point in time, ChatGPT can hallucinate.
It gives non-true or nonsensical answers depending on what you're probing on and how far you take the probe. And so they refer to that as hallucinations because they don't even know why it's doing what it's doing and how it's doing it.
So it's like ChatGPT is on drugs.
Yeah. Was it the Microsoft CEO? Was his name?
Taking mushrooms, okay, and it's like
exactly. We've gone from marijuana to magic mushrooms. all in a conversation about reverse engineering.
Woo!
Woo! We always cover a lot of ground.
I don't know what we're talking about in relation to the book, but we're talking about some fun stuff.
Well, I think we brought it back to success.
Yeah, we've reverse engineered.
That everyone has. You cannot. Let me rephrase that. You cannot define success for me.
Right.
You can define it for you, but you can't define it for me. And if you can't define one way of defining success, it's just different for everybody that's around. But I can assure you that there are some people who will look at the monetary aspects of success and say, that's success. Well, not really. It is for me. Point. It is for you. success for me is being happy. I can have no money in the bank, but I'm happy. Am I successful? So success cannot be defined by other than the individual asking the question.
Agreed.
I'm going to read a little bit of the conclusion.
Please. Now that we've strayed off the topic.
When Vincent van Gogh was growing up, the last thing in the world anyone close to him could have anticipated was that he would become a famous artist. Who could blame them? Not even historians can point to a single childhood episode suggesting that he had the slightest interest in art, let alone possessed an enormous hidden talent. What they did know about young Vincent was that he was a moody, driven, and obsessed with the most peculiar objects. While his siblings entertained themselves with marbles and dolls, Van Gogh would wordlessly slip out of the house and embark on lengthy expeditions. He'd return home hours later armed with wildflowers, beetles, and abandoned bird nests. These he would smuggle upstairs to the attic, where he would catalog his discoveries and update his burgeoning collection. Isn't that interesting?
Does that sound like somebody who has the beginnings of becoming a hoarder?
Well, perhaps I'll become a famous artist after my death then, because I think I'm close to a hoarder right now.
I think what I get out of that, and where he goes a little further with it is, that it was his eccentricity. How you say that word?
Right.
Being eccentric, that was part of the innate qualities of who he was. So he didn't show any indications that he was, a talented and to be renowned artist. He was demonstrating certain eccentricities that lent itself in the way his brain was wired to do other things.
Right. Yes.
He was a genius.
So if you want to be the next Van Gogh, I guess you reverse engineer it and start collecting beetles. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And empty bird nests, eggs. I mean, those are all, and he categorized them, right? Just like well, who was that? Was it Michelangelo who did that too? Or
you wouldn't be surprised.
I can't remember, but one of them, and maybe it was Vincent. No, it wasn't Vincent.
But isn't it true that most people that we would, whatever their field of, I'll use the word, Vern, their field of success, whatever their field of success is, if we view them the way we use our filters, the world views them as highly successful.
Right.
Aren't they also rather eccentric?
Yep.
As individuals? And it's got to be because of the way their brain is wired, that those eccentricities lend themselves to excelling at something else.
Yeah, you got to be not afraid of being different. That's for sure.
You look at, like the world, some people look at someone like, I'm just going to pick someone. Some people, I don't necessarily agree, but that's a whole nother subject. But some people look at Bill Gates and they look at him as sort of like this Svengali who's some expert on a range of topics, and they want to know, what books he's reading and, what he invests in, all this kind of stuff. Flash back to his beginnings when he was working in a garage with, with Wozniak, and creating whatever they were creating.
He lives in his garage.
He was just incredibly eccentric. He's an eccentric guy.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Jobs.
But you're right. It's, we would.
Yeah, those Jobs.
Now, when he started, we would see him as just being that weird, nerdy kid that stays locked up in his garage. And little did we know that further down the road, he was going to then become a genius with what he was doing. But initially, when all we saw was this nerdy kid who stayed in his garage, thought he was weird. Probably, I suspect, I don't know, I wasn't there, but I suspect that he probably struggles with women, if any of them were interested at all. Now,
Well,
that
now
he
Melissa's told him
is,
bye bye, so I guess so.
I mean, they line up just to, be with
And
him.
I meant to say Paul Allen
Oh,
was
okay.
his partner back then.
Got it. Got it.
So now we need to find the weirdest person we can and proclaim this is going to be a future genius. He is going to be successful.
Well, yeah, no, and it makes me wonder, like going back to what we talked about at the very beginning, it makes me wonder, like if you had to reverse engineer your own success,
Whoa.
you know, and you had to tell someone like, how did I achieve this? Like how would you do it? I don't mean to, it's just something to think about when we go our
Right.
separate ways. But seriously, if you're going to re-engineer yourself, let's say somebody said, "You're so successful. I want to get to where you are, Vern, or you are, Hal." How would you reverse engineer yourself for them?
That's a damn good question.
Yep. I had an insight that's related to that earlier in my career, and my answer to that is, if something frustrates you about other people, that is natural, seems natural for you. It's clearly obvious, and other people struggle with it. Then that's a talent that drove you to where you are in your success. So my example was, there's this thing that the Gallup organization has called Strengths Finder, and you fill out, this questionnaire, and it will tell you what your strengths are.
Mhm.
And one of the strengths, they give you your top 5 strengths. One of my number one strength was that I am strategic.
Oh, I
And
like
when I
that.
read what that meant, it basically, paraphrasing here, said that most people are linear thinkers. You, based on your innate talents, can see out multiple steps and get frustrated when people don't see where you are. And it's obvious, exceedingly obvious to you, because they're still linearly trying to get to where you are. They
Right.
aren't there yet, and it frustrates you. So it's one of those where a strength becomes a weakness.
Right. Interesting.
It was a powerful aha moment for me, because it was said exactly what I experienced.
Wow.
That's thinking outside the box, isn't it, Hal?
What's that?
You would be defined as someone who could think outside the box.
I maybe.
I love, yes, Hal.
No, I would just find myself, and I still do today, where I find myself in conversations where for some reason,
No thing.
I don't know why, my brain
You
just
see
wants
things
to
that
tell
people
me,
don't see.
oh, well, if you do that, this is what's going to happen. And the person says, I don't think that's necessarily what's going to happen. And it doesn't make me right or wrong, but my brain just jumps ahead multiple steps.
Right. Interesting. I like learning new things about people I speak to or friends with or have at book club. It helps me to talk to them and communicate and get on the same page. One of my strengths, and I'm not sure why it was a strength, but it was that I was a context learner. Why would that be a strength?
What is a context learner?
It's that I need context to learn.
I can't use the word in the definition.
No kidding.
I'm sorry, I need to take this.
Okay. See you next time, Vern.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me.
Yeah, and I'll apologize, Benita, if you were going to say something. There's a lag between the video and the audio for you today. So
Yeah, I
just,
noticed.
as others in the audience might have noticed, I just noticed it, throughout that, you know, there's some lag, so I don't know what it is, but
Yeah, no, there really is. I'm not sure what it is either. Um, I don't know what's wrong with my Wi-Fi or if
yeah,
it's
it's
being.
usually that's a bandwidth issue of some sort.
Yeah, I'll do the checks again after this conversation. Maybe they don't like me anymore because I only do lives every 2 weeks instead of one. Yeah.
So we're almost up on time. Do you have a new next book in mind, or is that to be announced
Um,
for June?
I mean, I played with a lot of things, Hal. It was like maybe we should just pick a book that Hal has read already and then just spend one session on each because he's going at such a rate that we potentially could do that. And there's lots of conversations that can come out of your books because I know this because you post about them. And
Well, yeah, thanks. I don't. This is not about me. So whatever you want to do, I will say. This is a 2006 book, but it's by authors I really love, and I've read it once a long time ago, and I'm reading it again.
okay, what is it?
Kouzes and Posner, they did the Leadership Challenge. They did a follow-up book called A Leader's Legacy. And
Okay.
so I just started it again yesterday, but basically it's about the fact that, leaders, whether you realize it or not, as a leader, you will create a legacy, whether you do it by design or it just happens, and you didn't do it on by design, but it happened anyway. When you leave, you've left a legacy in your wake. Now, what do you want that legacy to be?
I like that.
Your decisions and what you decide needs to be consistent with the legacy you want.
Right.
Some people may say, well, I don't want to leave a legacy. I just want to do the best I can while I'm here.
Well,
And the
you're still
argument is, well,
leaving a
that's
legacy.
necessary. It doesn't really matter because you do it anyway. As a leader,
Right.
you will leave a legacy, whether you do it by purposeful design or just by happenstance.
I would like you to look up this one too, Hal. An unconventional, timely, page-turning guide to building better friendships, reigniting love, and connecting everyone in our lives. And it's
Plays well with,
Others
oh,
by Eric Barker. The surprising science behind why everything you know about relationships is mostly wrong. And what he says is, first he's gonna piss you off, but then he's gonna like make you think. It's like having a hard conversation about relationships with your smartest, funniest friend. Eric Barker's wit and explanatory powers shine through every page. And that was, ooh, isn't David Epstein the guy that we don't like? The criminal? Or no? That was a different Epstein.
that's a different Epstein.
I'm so bad. I'm like giving a bad name to Mr. David. Okay, he's the #1 best-selling author of Range. Oh dear. That wasn't a good end to virtual book club, but think about the books that you'd like to read. Send them to me in DMs or write them down in the posts. Let's pick a book that we're gonna all have things to talk about.
Well, Plays Well with Others has got some pretty solid reviews. So
Oh yeah. Okay, I'm gonna end this
4.7
really
on
well.
Amazon and 4.12 on Goodreads. So that's pretty strong.
Ooh. I'm gonna end the broadcast and then stay a bit to talk to Hal about the next book.